Labdien! Esiet sveicināti Dekoratīvās mākslas un dizaina muzejā, kas ir viena no Latvijas Nacionālā mākslas muzeja struktūra vienībām. Un tātad šodien notiek diskusija Dizains, Valsts, Reputācija. Manuprāt, muzeji, gan mākslas, gan vēstures muzeji, ir valsts reputācija. Tātad mēs esam īstajā vietā, kur var notikt šāds pasākums. Vēl jau svarīgi, kad burtiski nesen, pagājušo ceturtdienu, mēs atklājām šo izstādi, kas saucās Sinerģija. Laikmetīgās tendences metāla mākslā un dizainā. Un īstenībā ir būtiski, ka šeit savā veidā arī ar lepnumu un reputāciju parādās labākie, aktīvākie autori, kas strādā ar tādu materiālu kā metāls un visdažādākajās izpausmēs. Un vārds sinerģija. Sinerģija ir ļoti svarīga metode, lai varētu strādāt, lai veiksmīgi varētu veidot savas valsts, savas nacionālās identitātes, pašapziņu un reputāciju. Un šodien pasākums būs divās daļās, un pirmajā daļā mums ir tas prieks, kad piedalās ar lekciju Kristiāns Hēve, viens no Dānijas ievērojamākajiem komunikācijas ekspertiem, kurš ir specializējies tieši runājot un domājot par komunikāciju mākslas un kultūras jomā. Kristiāns Hēve ir bijis daudzu grāmatu autors un ir strādājis kā ražošais direktors kompānijā Hēve Communications ar vairāk nekā 30 gadu pieredzi. Un ir kļuvis par Skandināvijas lielāko komunikācijas aģentūru, kas ir specializējusies tieši kultūras jomā. Kristiāns Hēve nav pirmo reizi Latvijā, un mēs ļoti priecājamies, kad viņš ir piekritis būt atkal šeit, gada nogalē, un lasīt savu lekciju par to, cik ir ļoti svarīgi un kā 21. gadsimtā mēs varam veidot savas valsts, savas institūcijas reputāciju. Paldies Dānijas institūtam par atbalstu un aicinu dodu vārdu. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be back in Latvia. I've been here many times before, and it's always like coming to my second home. So Riga is like Copenhagen, a very traditional, it's a cultural heritage also, but also a vibrant city going for the future. So you have both. I'm happy to come and address this state reputation and how you brand yourself as a country. I think there's a lot of competition in the world today about having a unique position. So I will try to address some of these elements which are important today. And first of all, I did a little research before coming here, because I asked some of the people I work together with, if I say Latvia, what do you say to me? So if we start with that, I will say there is a little room for improvement. And there will always be, also for my country, there's always room for improvement. But it's only, I started with a little research, then I will try to go into the narrative which you have to think about in a more strategic way, which elements should be in that. And then for the last of my time, I will try to point out what I think is your unique positions. So you get that with you. And then I hope we can get some inspirations and questions. So this will be the next 30, 35 minutes. Yes. There it is. And I'm the owner of Hēve Communication, which have been involved in both national cultural campaigns for Denmark and also abroad. We are working very much in the cultural and artistic field, but also with creative businesses. So this is the field we are working with. So I have called this rebranding Latvia and a new narrative. And this is the reason of my research. Because I asked some of my colleagues, and a lot of them was sure it was a former Soviet republic. So that was one thing. There was something with Russia here. So that was some of the knowledge to you. Then half of them were sure it was a Balkan country, and after I was a little annoyed, they could remember it was Baltic. Then the capital, they are not sure if it's Vilnius or Tallinn. And then a few were sure there was something with a baseball player that was famous. So that was the little research, and that's why I think that a new narrative would be a very good idea to think about. Of course, this is only for fun, but there is a little serious element in it. So, I remember when I made a little research that you have a slogan. Best enjoyed slowly. It might not be, in one way, it's a nice slogan, it's a nice payoff, but depends what you want to achieve. What is your vision? It's not the most vibrant, exciting slogan. So this was my little research to conclude that a new narrative is necessary for Latvia when we come outside. And to create a new reputation, you need a new narrative. Because reputation is coming with the actions, the activities, the values, the identity you have, of course, but you need a narrative today. And why is it so important with a narrative? Because we live in a world of narratives today. You can see what is happening with a narrative can change the whole world. You can see United States, you can see in 12 months, a new narrative changed completely a nation's reputation and branding. I'm not going into if it's positive or negative, just say that these narratives are so crucial in a digital world with social media that you really need to be aware of this narrative. And you need 3 core elements of such a narrative. You need your past, your cultural identity, your heritage. You need also the present, what you are now, and then the vision of what you want to become. So you have to design this in a way where your fundamental values are crucial to create a narrative. So it's not a marketing campaign. That's very important. To find the DNA of your country is, of course, very difficult because you will have a lot of different opinions. What are really the core elements? But you have to choose. I will come into that a little later. I think the past is very important when you want to create a new reputation of your country. So it has to play a role, and the present, of course, but the future, the vision you can create will change. So that should play the biggest role in your narrative, what you want to become, not what you have been or what you are today. And this vision can change a lot. And of course, a vision is something that you are not there yet. It's a process, it's a journey, what you want to become and what impact you want to do to the world. And then you have, of course, I was looking into your design report 2020, that a narrative has to be supported also with the material and the immaterial. So, of course, you have a lot of products like you have in the museum here also. You have a lot of fundamental physical things, and at the same time, you have a lot of communication, information, processes, values, and you have to combine that. And I think that what is important today is if you want to have a strategic focus on design, you need to have a sort of real initiatives or clusters or framework of design. You cannot only tell that you have a vision of design, you need also to create it physically. And this is, of course, where the political agenda comes in here, that you need also to create some frameworks of the different areas. So here, I think we have a very important point that you need to be strategically focused on the new narrative. And when I say that, you have to take some choices, which are hard. What do you really want to become? What is the most important? If I ask you, what would be the most important areas now for Latvia for the coming 5-10 years? What would you tell me? So I put you on a question. What? Excuse me? Yes. Green energy innovations? Yes. What? Security? Yes. Education? Yeah. Yeah. More? Job creation? Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. So you can see that there is a lot of things which are important, and you have to take some choices now. What is what you should focus on here, and what you should be known internationally? What is your story internationally and nationally? Both. And you have to take some choices. If you look at the city of Amsterdam, they took some choices also to make a sort of new branding and positioning of Amsterdam, where they said, well, we are a lot, but we have to choose which target groups, which narrative, and how do we approach that. And one thing is that you need the local citizens to take ownership of that. And at the same time, it should be interesting and relevant internationally. So this is the mixture, which is the big agenda here. How can you create ownership, responsibility for a new narrative and reputation, and at the same time, it's relevant internationally. So, what you told me here, I will address a little later what I think could be your unique positions in an international agenda, which also could be a national agenda. So, the first thing you have to do is, of course, to ignore the old ideas about what Latvia is or was. And at the same time, you have to ask people, like I did, how they see themselves, their values, in order to know how can you make them a part of the new narrative. Because they would be the ambassador of a new reputation for Latvia. At the same time, you have to ask people outside what they think of Latvia. And the perception we have of our own country is normally very different from the perception of the outside. So if I ask you what is the most important thing of Latvia, what Latvia have created the last 10 years, what would you tell me? It could be an event, a project, some of your cultural heritage, some uniqueness. I did the same in Denmark for 2 weeks ago. Nobody answered. So just take it easy. You know, it's difficult. It's only, what do you tell? Because there is not this big narrative. Of course not. So what you really have to think about is, in this world we have today, I don't believe that you can create one story. You need a sort of meta story, and then you need different elements of this story to reach the different target groups you want to reach. You cannot create just a branding story where everybody can see each other today. It's not possible. The world is so fragmented today that it's not possible. So that's one thing. And when you have to compose a narrative, you need to think about this, which are very value-based today. And I believe strongly in that you have to create something which are meaningful, relevant, which have a purpose, and also which can create an impact of value or difference from the people who you want to reach. So it's very much value-based now in a world which have a focus on environment, which have a focus of green alternative energy. A lot of challenges now. That's why you have to be very, very value-based. So that's one thing I would point out. Then ensure that the citizens will take ownership. And very important with this ownership. And it has to be relevant for the citizens also. They have to see themselves in that story. It's very hard to get people involved unless you have a burning platform. But the burning platform Europe has today, I think, is security-wise, somebody mentioned here, but also the environment, energy, fake news, the social media, which have played a crucial role in put pressure on democracy. So you have a lot of burning platforms, which you could see not as a problem, but as an opportunity to get people involved and engaged. So I will see it the opposite way, not only as challenges, but also as opportunities, these burning platforms. But you have to create burning platforms in order that the citizens take responsibility and ownership. Then, of course, what is important, especially for Latvia, I believe, is that many young people are traveling abroad, and you should give them something to tell about Latvia, to be proud of. And this is the international dimension here, to create this narrative which they can travel and see themselves in. That's very important. And it will also be important to think about the entrepreneurs, the many startups in the creative business. The cultural creative sector is, in my opinion, one of the most important sectors to create a new reputation. So they should be able also to see themselves, and you should think about them as ambassadors of the reputation of Latvia. And then, of course, to choose some elements who can create this impact that you want to achieve. What is important, I'm talking as a communication man now, is that you are able to communicate what you want to tell. And today we communicate very short. We communicate visually much more than with words. So you have to think also in a context, how will you be able on the platform of Instagram, Twitter, Facebook to tell your narrative in a very visual way and to create emotional response and reflection. Then you have also to identify the target groups that you want to reach, both nationally and international, and then match them with the unique positions you have, or you have decided that you want to have. So you have to make this match between the target groups and your unique positions. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And if I should try to address some of the unique positions you have, and I'm looking from outside now, then I would address that you are a singing nation. You agree? Or you just get tired? Both, yes. Yes. You see, I take this because I know most of you would like to forget this. But I take it because I think it's a fact. Yeah. Yeah. So you are a singing nation. Yeah. You see, Denmark is also a singing nation. And we have a lot of old songs which a lot of people, they cannot really identify themselves with, to be honest. Then the Minister of Culture 5 years ago decided that if we took this singing and made it like in a new modern version, how can we create everybody as a singer around in local communities? So it's not something we are going to hide, it's something we are going really to support. So everybody has a voice, and this voice everybody can sing, and it's not because we should sing the old songs, it's to in a way, the creative potential everybody has, we want to release this. That was the idea, and suddenly it became very sexy with a lot of singing in companies, in startup, in ministries, everywhere people were singing the songs they thought was the most important. I mean, not special songs, but the songs they thought was important. And I think this is something you have to address. And I think it's relevant also for yourself, but also outside. So that's one thing. This guy, I think he's a role model for the new time. You can see him as a role model, sports person, but also with a musical hip-hop interest. And I think, how can you use him in a sort of narrative? Then I see Latvia as a country which are rich of arts, culture, and design. You have a very interesting survival kit art festival. You have composers, photographers, filmmakers. So I think in a way, this survival kit festival, I think is interesting. I like the frame and idea of it. how can you survive? And how can an art festival help you to survive this world? I think that's an interesting festival which I think could grow. So I think that would be one of the main points to create a much more art cultural image of Latvia outside. Then I've just taken some names when I researched it, just to say those people, in my opinion, you could take as sort of creative ambassadors when you have to tell some of the new narratives, some of the stories. You have many more, but only they could be some sort of storytellers of your narrative, because it needs to have some storytellers. I think you have some. I wouldn't recommend some politicians. When you have this narrative, you need to have artistic, cultural, creative people. Then I would recommend the UN Global Goals. How can you see yourself? An agenda, I think that in the coming years will be much more important, especially to the younger generations. And I think that if you could have the agenda, your narrative, combined with the global goals, that would create a relevance, both here in Latvia, but also outside. And here I think that also for the children in schools would be very important to include those goals and this agenda. And I think the creative sector as such has a huge potential for smaller countries. And I also think that new design solutions in the healthcare sector, social welfare design, culture sectors, technology, this is an area where I think Latvia has a huge potential. I know that you are very much focused on the creative sector here, I think I was told. And I think you just have to show it a little more. And then you could say, well, how do we do that? And I know that somebody has been working with a Creative Business Cup. But I think that could be one of the things that you could try to host a Creative Business Cup Europe here in Riga. That would be a very good activity to tell this story and to go into a sort of cooperation with the Creative Business Cup in Copenhagen. They have got a huge amount of support for the Ministry of Commerce, and they are very well funded, and they have very big aspirations and ambitions, so that would be a good time to talk to them. So that would be one of the recommendations, so you not only talk about this, but you show that this country is strategically focused on the creative sector for the rest of Europe. And I know, because my company is involved in the communication of the Creative Business Cup, that what is good about this is that they invite investors. So it's not only look at all the creative people. I mean, there are also a lot of investors from around the world, master classes and so on. So that could be some activity which I could recommend of this narrative. Then I think also that design as such, design as a mindset, design as a sort of process is very important to solve a lot of the big problems we have, but also to find new solutions. What is interesting is that the EU has decided on art, culture, and creative sustainable business models. How can we create that to secure our institutions and also develop new technology, together with the new technology? I think that could be an area also of your narrative, which could be very interesting. Because this sustainable development of business model has a lot to do with creative sector and startup. And the cultural sector, art and culture sector, will be important in the coming years because of fake news and because of the pressure of the free press of our way of communicating. So our values identity will be under pressure, and this is good for this burning platform. So that's why this area where I think design play an important role is important. Just an idea, we have a little town in Denmark called Viborg, which was the center in the old days. They have a church, they have a cultural heritage, and then they decided that they needed a new story, not a cultural past, but also for the future. So they founded an animation school. And this animation school have attracted animators from the whole world the last 5-10 years, have created a new business cluster for animation, has gone into cooperation with Disney, but it was founded by a school. And this area between technology and cultural heritage is really interesting, because this is of interest for a lot of younger people, because when you combine technology future with the cultural past, it gets interesting both. So that would be one of the mindset also for you to think about. The new Latvia is focused, in my opinion, of sustainability in a broader sense. Sustainability not only economically, but also sustainable in your education, in your environment, in your cultural heritage for the future, and also the way you think. So I believe very much it's also a mindset you have to change. Not only the framework, and that you need a big vision, in my opinion, that you want to inspire the world. How can you transform as a former Soviet republic with all your past to a future which really inspire through innovation, to creativity? This would be the story that would be of interest for everybody to see. And I believe this is the potential you have, but you need this vision in order to create a sort of new Latvia. And then, of course, you need many big things here. If we have to change our perception of the UN global goals. I was a moderator 2 weeks ago, and there was a keynote speaker saying, all change starts in the heart. So in a way, we need to start in the heart, that we really want to believe this. And then, of course, our mind has to go with it. But if we want change in climate society, it starts in the heart and the mind. And I think the sustainability in formation, you know what I mean with formation? Bildung, dannelse. I don't know the words in... You don't have this word. You don't know? No. You call it in English formation. I mean, I think that this new formation in the educational system is so important to create a new formation for the younger generations. And it will be much more digital than our generation. That's part also of the challenge everybody has now. So this formation is also so important. You have to ask this question, how can we create this new formation? I believe through art and culture. Because you need that in the school. You need the music school, the education. You need to have this formation through art and culture. And then, of course, you could say the responsibility we need to take today, to take this ownership of a narrative, of a new reputation. We need to be engaged, participating in it, otherwise it's not relevant. So how to create a sort of co-creation when you talk about state reputation, to create ambassadors, to create new people which believe in the future. There you have to create this narrative where they can see themselves in and take part in that narrative and participate in the execution of this narrative. And the generations we have now are used to this sort of co-creation. They would like to participate, and I think we have to invite them also to take part of this. So this was my words for the new Latvia. I believe right now there is a moment of opportunities the coming years to create a new narrative, mainly because of what's happening in the world, and especially in the States. Thank you for the words.
Hello? Oh. Ivars, can you hear me? Thank you so much. Yeah, this is our invention, by the way. Latvians together with Finnish guys did it. And we still have a few minutes for a few questions from the audience.
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. The first one is here. The next one is preparing already. Andres, catchbox is yours.
Thank you for the story. What would be how would you formulate the narrative of Denmark as an example?
Yes.
And the second question isn't this a bit too general? Is this a good starting point? But shouldn't we have much more focused narrative for Latvia?
Of course, it's general because you have to work with the narrative and you have to establish some focus groups. You have to make the whole process. I think that should be designed. And that should be a sort of national project. So I think you have to take that seriously. It will take some time, but I guess that it's worth the time. I think it's very important to get the countryside, to get not only Riga, but to get the whole country involved in this. And of course you have to go on digital platforms and so on, to create a lot of inputs for the narrative. So this is a process which I think you have to design yourself. Denmark hasn't done that. They haven't done their homework. So if you ask me, what is Denmark? Well, you will get 100 different stories. And I believe this is one of the problems with the smaller countries. They cannot decide what they want to be. So in a way, it's the same challenge we have now. You have the Hans Christian Andersen country, or you have a new innovative country, creative sector. I mean, you have the film industry. What do you want to choose? And nobody chooses. So you are becoming a lot of everything. And I believe you have to choose now. I mean, Amsterdam has been hugely successful in selecting 3 areas where they wanted to become both nationally, internationally well-known. No marketing campaign at all. Only storytellers, narrative, and the social media platforms. No marketing at all. And that, I believe that's one of the ways you can execute this.
Okay, thanks.
More question? Yeah. Rita. Try.
Hi. My name is Dikta, and I wanted to ask you a question about Simon Anholt's.
This side.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about Simon Anholt's new approach. As you know, Simon Anholt has created the Reputation Branding Index, and now he has turned to create a Good Country Index, which is an index showing how well countries behaving in the world, measuring impact to the climate change, sustainability, international order, internal well-being, and such kind of factors. And his argumentation is that the people like countries which are good countries in a way that they behave good to the outside world. So how you would comment his new approach in how you look to the countries?
I believe very much in that you have to behave responsible, value-based, and also in a way which the world see as responsible, good citizenship. Then, that's one thing. I think this is a precondition of being accepted today. But you need something more. You need some more dimensions on that, because this is a sort of, we would expect that from every country. So I believe these dimensions you have to put is the more creative dimension, the more artistic dimension. Because I believe this is a way of telling stories in different ways which are not in words, which are not the rational brain, which are talking to us in a way which I believe the world is now really looking for. Because you see, there is a tiredness of rational arguments, good campaigns of scientists, of knowledge. I know it's problematic, but I just say it. So I think these dimensions you can put on to make people passionate, that's very important. And I think on top of this agenda with sustainability and so on, you need this passion dimension, the heart dimension, which can inspire us. And I think that's why you need artists in the future to become involved in this process, in this narrative. So that would be my comment on it, because otherwise I agree much in how you have to behave, that you have to be what you tell you are. And you also need some visions which are based in reality. You cannot just invent a campaign today. Nobody will buy it. But I think there's some dimension which hasn't been used when you talk about state reputation today. In the older days, you have all the big civilizations in the world had this artistic dimension. Always. We just forgot it the last 100 years. You couldn't imagine a country which not had this dimension of its narrative and storytelling. But today, I believe we need to get this back.
May I sit? I hope so. Linda, so I have a question. You were telling about different narratives about Denmark that exist. And in strategic communications, we frequently say that we really need to target different audiences, so with different messaging to different audiences. And if we take a look at a country narrative, a story that we tell about a country, it will probably resonate in different ways, let's say in Russia, China, Great Britain, and inside Latvia. So probably we would need different narratives. So who said we only can have one narrative, and who said that Denmark is doing bad, that it has several narratives which are probably strongly resonating with different audiences?
Yes, I totally agree, because you have this conflict that you need very different narratives to target the different groups and the different nations and the different cultures. At the same time, you need to select something of yourself, because otherwise it will become everything and, in my opinion, nothing. But you have to respect that these strategic areas you decide, you have to communicate them very differently with different narratives to different nations. So you should be able to take elements out of these narratives and to make much more targets at the same time. So I agree with you. It's not only bad that you have a lot of stories. It's not only bad that people find their own story about a country. But you need yourself to take a responsibility of saying, what do we want Latvia to become in 4 or 5 years? What is our vision? You need that to inspire people. And then you can have a lot of different stories, you can say, under this big vision. But I really think you need this vision to excite yourself and also other nations. So in a way, it's both. You cannot have only this one payoff. That's not possible today. And I don't think it would work. One of the things which are really working is that you try to identify what is the need of people today. When you visit a country, what is the biggest experience you can get? That is to become friends with the local people, going home to their home and see what they eat, and to learn about the local culture. If you ask people, all tourists, that is the big experience. So that's also a storytelling, that you open up your own houses. I mean, a lot of people do that today. And that's also a part of a storytelling, which are very efficient. And it's not one of the, you could say, state-sponsored campaigns or tourist organization campaign. This is going on between human beings. That's also part of the narrative. So it's both.
Thank you, Kristiāna. Actually, we are so happy to have you here, and we will continue our discussion after 15 minutes, and we will talk about the new Latvia as a new normal, and together with Denmark, probably we will build again the new relationships, as we have a memorandum of understanding signed between our ministries on creative industries, how to develop their things together. And guys, use opportunity during the next 15 minutes, during coffee break, talk to Kristiāna and talk to each other. Coffee will be served on the second floor, but you will be asked very precisely to be down at 3:15. So we will continue with our discussion with our local representatives from many different sectors. But now let's give applause, and we would like to give you a small present, which is actually, now I have to manage.
I would like this.
This we will give you for the next time. This is our, handbook, and just because of this handbook, we started this series of discussion, and today is the final discussion about the reputation and the state. So Latvia design strategy is here, and it's evaluated highly from many countries. We hope that you will read through and you will come back next year to implement that. Thank you so much. Let's give applause once more. Oh.